The biggest risk agencies face, actually not taking enough risk.
Welcome, everyone, to the Connected Conversations in Insurance podcast. My name is Ray Huang. I'm joined today with Steve Anderson. Steve's been in the insurance industry for a long time, and he's the co-founder of Catlett and author of the Bezos Letter and just general, knows the ins and outs of everything in insurance agency world, tech, AI now, and all over the place. So welcome to the show, Steve.
Well, Ray, thanks for having me. I look forward to our conversation.
So I guess we'll start from the top. How'd you get into insurance? And let's hear that story.
Okay. I would say, like most people that I know in the industry, I fell into it, never planned on it. I do actually know several people who actually went to school for risk management, but I was not one of them. I grew up in the Washington, D.C. area, married my high school sweetheart. After college, we moved back there. And then her dad owned an independent agency and had a stroke when he was 53. He recovered, but still had some problems, so he needed some help. It was primarily a one-person shop with a few people there helping him. So I came in to help him out for a couple of years. Maybe 45 years later, I haven't left. So I always tell people insurance, especially agencies, are like a quicksand. You stick your toe in and it never lets you go. And so worked in his agency in literally downtown Washington, D.C., and learned the business and got my first taste of technology there. I brought in the early 80s, our first in-house agency management system. Those were early systems. They were big, small refrigerator size, reel-to-reel tape backup, green screen terminals, weren't even PCs, monitors, and really didn't do much. They helped with accounting and tried to do some other things, but they were really basic at that time. But I kind of caught the bug at that point and kind of kept going throughout my career. So I worked with him 13 years, ended up leaving the family business, and that's another long story. And my wife and I ended up moving to the Dallas-Fort Worth area, started to do some consulting with agencies on selecting management systems. So this was 91, and ended up meeting a couple of guys who owned an agency. I came in as a producer and started building a book of primarily commercial business. Also, keeping my fingers in the technology at that agency, I was instrumental or a big part of the move from paper files to digital files. So this was 93 or 94. So I never say we were the first because I don't know that for sure. But we certainly were among the first agencies that started making that transition. People started wondering how we did it and are we crazy and are we going to get sued out of business and write all of the kind of, at that time, certainly normal questions. I started helping some agencies consulting that wanted to do it themselves and follow the same path. Left that agency in 99, ended up moving to outside Nashville, Tennessee, which is where I am now, and really set up a consulting business at that point, helping agencies with really technology. Certainly AMS systems have continued to be a big part of that, but websites, social media, right, kind of all the trends that we've seen over the last 30 or 40 years. So, and now I caught the AI bug probably 2.5 years ago. And the way I describe it is I've gone pretty deep down the rabbit hole. And I think it is a technology and a tool that we'll look back on this time and say that was more transformative than the internet was for the insurance industry, helping agencies and some vendors with AI strategy, how to build tools, what do agents need, and how to think about this tool because it is very different than what we've had in the past.
Yeah. I'll say, like, from your work advising and talking to a lot of agencies and agency owners, like, what's kind of that main kind of frustration, technology related, that through line that has gone through, like, the 2000s to
I think a couple things come to mind. One is the frustration of it doesn't do what you said it would, or it's taking longer to build it, or some of that just frustration with technology. They, in their mind, spent a lot of money, which probably in some cases they have, and it hasn't resulted in as much productivity improvement or payback or streamlining processes as maybe they thought it would. So I think that's a big frustration. I think the other one is typically an independent insurance agency is started and run by a good salesperson. And so that may mean they're not good business people. So there's this dichotomy between having great skills at selling and building a book of business and all of that, trying to transition those skills into building a business. Part of that is people and employees and managing that. Part of that is the change management, meaning, staff and agencies tend to be older, tend to be used to the way they have done things for many years. And so when anybody like me comes in and says, hey, there's a new way to think about this, or how about, why don't we try this? There's a lot of resistance. So that change management, I think, is frustrating too. And certainly for agency owners that see they need to change, they want to change, and it's hard to get
yeah.
everybody on board.
Yeah, change management is always a challenge with any tech adoption,
Yep.
change. And then it gets, I think, exacerbated with shiny object
Oh,
syndrome,
no question.
or maybe in the sales pitch you buy into the Kool-Aid of what
Yep.
it's supposed to do, like you mentioned, and it doesn't, or it does to an extent, but there's limitations. There's data connectivity problems,
Yep.
things like that. So,
Yep.
do you have maybe a process or recommendation on how to cut through some of the BS?
Which BS? The employee BS
I will
or the
say,
sales
the
process?
BS of um, when you're evaluating a tech solution, right? As a tech solution provider, we all
Yep.
make claims of being more efficient, faster. We're gonna do whatever our thing does to increase your conversion rates and cut your time in half,
Yeah.
or whatever that number is,
Whatever the number,
right?
whatever the
Whatever
problem.
the number is, but there's a reality to it, right? How many asterisks are we going to put on that statement of the time savings or revenue, the ROI, and all that stuff? What can an agent do, or an owner or a manager do to kind of cut through that BS and really see how is this going to actually work for us in our situation?
Again, a couple things come to mind. I think first is shiny object, no question, is a big problem. You hear something at a conference or a convention or a meeting or a mastermind, and somebody says, "This is great. This helped us do all this kind of stuff," and I, had people leave, but I haven't had to replace them, or any of that kind of stuff. So now the other agency owners going, "Well, I've got to get that," and they don't do their due diligence. I would say that's the biggest over the years. I think that's the biggest problem. They don't dig deep enough. Now, on the corollary, vendors really don't like me saying that, right? Because that takes that sales process and probably
Yeah,
elongates it if they
sure.
really are doing the homework that they should be doing to verify the claims. I mean, so for me, it's always show me, right? So AMS, show me the actual steps you take that you say save time, and getting staff involved in that same process. So I think that's the due diligence. And again, there's this kind of, what do I want to call it? Different pulls between the vendors and the client, the agency. Meaning, one of the things that I advocate, which vendors really don't like, is let me try it out for 6 months. Give me a chance to actually see in our operation how it would work. And I
Yep.
do understand the vendor's perspective on that, which is Well, that's hardly enough time to get everybody involved and trained and actually being able to use it. But I think the overall issue I see over and over again is jumping into something without actually really knowing what it's going to look like. And frankly, for a lot of times, you're not going to know until you jump in. I just flashed back to a presentation I made, and it was kind of a panel discussion with the audience and talking about insurtech and how to make sure the claims are right and how to pick somebody. And one agent asked, well, what happens if it doesn't work? And I said, actually, your percentage of it not working the way you think or the way it should is actually pretty high. And that may mean you just stop, you cut it, you take your losses and run. Well, agencies are so risk averse, and this comes out of my book. I mean, the core message of my book, The Bezos Letters, is the biggest risk agencies face actually not taking enough risk. So now they're hesitant, and I understand it, right? What do we agency owners see all day long and staff? All the worst things that could happen, right? A fire in the house, an accident, work comp injury. I mean, all the bad things that happen. And so you want to not do that. But when technology is changing, developing so rapidly, you can't wait around for a couple of years to kind of see how things work out, because then you're so far behind the curve of other agencies that have taken those steps that it becomes really hard to catch up or adapt and adopt those new processes and procedures. And I think with AI right now, that really is the biggest issue. I think agencies that are experimenting with it, testing it, trying it out, are creating a moat that other agencies that are waiting to see are going to have a harder and harder time bridging that moat that those early agencies are creating. And I'm seeing it every day.
Yeah, so let's dive into AI. How are they using it? What actual tools are they using, or are you recommending that they kind of dabble into?
So there are different categories of tools. So you have what I would call the insure tech world that is creating a lot of AI stuff, right? Pick a vendor. Pretty much any insure tech type vendor that's creating has AI now. I mean, they have to,
Yep.
right? You got to
Yep.
have AI in it, and you got to kind of show. Some of it works, some of it's not so good. So there's that category, and I would say, in broad terms, what I've seen work well: policy checking. I again at the meeting where we kind of met, I was talking to an agency, and I've literally only in my whole career met one person in an agency who liked policy checking. And she was just that type of person that wanted to be on her own and could check policies all day long. That is the anomaly. Most people hate it, which
Mhm.
means it doesn't get done, which means there's an E&O exposure there likely. So AI is really good at compare and again, I'm not going to get too technical, but AI is the overall category. Machine learning is that picking out kind of pieces of information and being able to compare them together. There are some platforms that are doing that really well and saving hours of time and getting better quality results from that policy checking. So probably some type of vendor is best to do that. Then kind of on the other end, you have the typical LLM tools, large language models. ChatGPT, Claude, Google Gemini right now kind of are the top three in
Yep.
general. And, again, agents are experimenting with using those tools. My caveat here is really strong, which is do not use the free versions. You have a data security problem, period.
Yes.
Use the paid versions at a minimum. And again, typically the first level paid versions for all of those platforms is $20 a month. And that's affordable for any agency. I don't care who you are and how big you are. Chat system and using it to train the real model, you can turn that off in those systems. So
Yep.
that's just from a data security, that's a really big piece. And what I'm finding is people are using those I'll just say Chat GPT for the universe,
Sure.
they don't understand, and that's where I spend a lot of my time, is helping people understand what it means to communicate with a large language model. How do you do it? How do you give it context? You don't just ask a question, you give it a context for how you want it to respond. And that significantly increases the likelihood of getting answers and responses that you expect. And
Yeah.
actually, it's pretty interesting how well it can help you if you know how to communicate with it, I think is the way
Mhm.
it's called prompt engineering. I don't like that term. I think that's too engineering focused.
Yeah.
It's really prompt thinking, how to think and how to craft your questions or what you're asking it to do so you can help it narrow down its massive knowledge base to the
To
particular
something
pieces that
specific.
you're interested in getting.
Yeah, and I use a lot of those tools as well. And what I find actually helpful is asking it what it needs, like, what else do you need to know to give me the
Right.
answer that it'll tell you. Is like, I need to know who your target audience is. What are the demographics? I need to know this. Just give me some of the nuance. What are some like reference
Yep.
materials and all that? You can feed it all that, and like it'll take it in and spit it back out, and you know, learn what you like. And you want to learn on your own little private model versus
Well,
bank
and
model.
even in my own use, I'm learning more and more to have a conversation with it.
Yeah.
So I will say one of the things that I've learned and start doing pretty much every time. So I think people have heard of AI hallucinations. It makes up
Mhm.
stuff. It's trying to please you. And
Yes.
when I get content based on all that you said, here's everything I want, then I type in, analyze the content to verify it's true and accurate. Now, the models today have access to the internet and they will go out and research and come back. And this happens all the time. When I do that, it comes back and says, hey, these claims here, I can verify. Here's, the and sources and that kind of stuff. You said these claims here, I should soften because I don't have specific research that verifies this information. One, that's a way to help reduce hallucinations. Two, it's a way to help you make sure what you're putting out there is more accurate. And I think that's the big thing now today, being trustworthy using it.
Hmm.
And the other thing I'll say here too is I don't believe in hiding the fact that you're using AI. People assume it today.
Yeah.
And so how you use it and even naming your bot, whatever that might be, if you have something on your agency site, or I mean, there are a lot of things there. I think the biggest underutilized capability of ChatGPT, Claude, Google Gemini is using it as a thought partner.
Hmm.
I have this a prospect. Here's a prospect, help me research information about it. And then what are likely the biggest questions this prospect is going to have about their insurance program? What, I mean, and literally use it as a coach, sales coach, business coach, financial coach, the virtual CFO. I think now we have artificial CFO. Ask questions about your P&L. Where are the expenses that I should be looking more closely at? Where, what else should your comment earlier, what else should I know? What else should I be asking you? Those are
Hmm.
all interactive thought partner types of conversations. And frankly, that can go on for a while. I love it as a sales coach.
Yep.
The prices increased 23%. What are the objections going to be from my client? And based on this information, what are good responses I can have to those objections? How can I help him understand, or her, that they don't need to shop to get a lower price, and that a lower price isn't necessarily all of the sales objection kinds of things. It's actually remarkably, I won't say accurate, but it likely will help you think of things you hadn't thought of before and have you as a producer in this scenario be much better at your job. And I
Yeah.
think people
Uh,
don't think of it that way. They think of it as I need an article, create a blog post, create a social media post. That's fine. I can do that. I think the thought partner idea or business coach, sales coach idea is even more powerful.
yeah. And you can feed it information, you can feed it call
Mhm.
transcripts
Yep.
and all that stuff. One little trick that I like to do always when I'm like I use it to help me write a LinkedIn
Mhm.
post or something. And I'll write it, but it's just like I'm just writing it off of my dome and I'm like, just clean that up a little
Yeah.
bit, right?
Help me a little bit with
Make
this.
it sound a little smarter. But then the secret thing is you also want to say like write it to like a ninth grade level or a sixth grade,
Mhm.
just so it's not like it's not trying to be like overly intellectual.
Right.
That's not how you speak. You
Nope.
don't use those words. Sometimes you do. Keep the language simple and not overcomplicate it and do all that stuff. And then I always say like give it another once over and
Well,
make it human again.
absolutely.
you know?
I try and emphasize as much as I can, never ever copy and paste. You
No.
always got to take a look at it, review it, and make sure it does sound like you because people are getting better and better at recognizing AI-ish
Yeah.
stuff.
They're
And
they're
that doesn't
trying to
mean you
take
don't
away
use it
my
as a tool, but use it smartly.
yeah. They're trying to take away my M dashes, which I love. I was
Yeah,
like,
the
that's how I
poor M
write.
dash. There are some good uses for an M dash. It's getting a bad
Yeah, no,
rap.
it is. So I almost purposely add extra ones now, just to be like,
Just to be
look,
like,
AI wouldn't put this many M dashes in.
right.
But if you know the way that I talk and the way that I think, there's a lot of pauses.
Yep.
That's how I roll. Yeah. So as far as specific to an agency, how do we, I guess, what would you say to an agent that is resistant to the new technology, to using AI or using tools that have AI? I know a lot of the arguments that I hear, aside from it just being like, hey, this is weird and new, or I'm not ready for it, and the hallucination
Hmm.
aspects of it, what, what, how do you get someone off the fence and say, it's like, just, let's just try it? Keeping in mind what you said earlier about, hey, some tech we just jump into,
Right.
you know?
Well, I think one of the things I should suggest, certainly for employees, is identify the biggest time consuming tasks that employees do. Have them list what tasks do you repeat a lot that take a lot of time? And then figure out if there is a AI process or tool or something that can actually help reduce that time
Yeah.
and help everybody, owner, employee, staff, start understanding where the time savings can come from. And I'm even starting to rethink best practices and that idea and revenue per employee.
Mhm.
What is possible today with an AI first agency in terms of number of employee and revenue or revenue per employee? Some of the best, according to best practices, best agencies are 300,000, maybe a little under that revenue per employee. Some of the best agencies. I'm starting to wonder what would it take to be 500,000 or
Yeah.
750,000 because there are some significant time savings and actually the work's enhanced, not reduced.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing is, I hear this a lot, is people are afraid of AI replacing them. We've, I have talked about the employee problem, finding quality, people for 2 decades, maybe. This is not something new. We've seen this coming. I don't think you're going to get rid of employees, but you may not have to replace when employees leave. I think starting to think that way, certainly for agency owners, may be an interesting strategic thought process to help them go, hey, this might be something that I should spend some time looking at and trying to figure out.
Sure. Yeah, there's an element of retraining your own mindset, but also retraining your employees' mindset as far as being able to do more using tools, not just AI, but like just tools and whatever's available to you to become more efficient, right? Harkening back to the days when your AMS was on magnetic tapes and all that. The world's different. You want to work from home, you can work from home. There's these like options that are available that can, yeah, like you said, increase the revenue per employee if you can get each of your employees to say, hey, what are those repetitive tasks? Have them get rid of those things and still trust that they're going to be done right. I think that's a big, we're just going to let this AI do its black box magic, and like until you do it and come to a place where you can see it for yourself and trust it.
And know it'll get done. Yeah.
There's that skepticism.
Yeah, no question. And warranted. I mean, I'm not saying it's not warranted, but I'm seeing already some early, I'll call them ideas. So where AMSs are going to change dramatically. So think about an agency management system with no menus. You just tell it what you want done. Steve Anderson bought a new car on Saturday and traded in his other car. What do I need to do? Or it knows what to do. It's a add, replace vehicle. Now you just says, okay, what vehicle did he get? What vehicle did he trade in? And the process is done, not clicking through. And I wrote an article, LinkedIn article a long time ago, I don't know how many years, that I think AMSs should be like iPhone apps or smartphone apps, right? You just pick what you want. Well, I'm starting to think the AMS system, now that's a dramatic change, by the way, right? You just talk to it and tell it what you want. Now it may be typing. I think it's going to be voice, because I think voice is there right now, actually, to be able to do more and more of that. But what does that do to the culture? What does that do to training? They just ask for what they need done, and the system knows how to do it and then steps them through. So they're still in the loop, right? To verify, to check, to make sure it's right. And they don't have to worry about learning how to dig into where to do it.
Yeah. No, super, super insightful. I think we're going to wrap it up on that note. I guess what's one takeaway you have as we, if an agent you're going to recommend, let's take an action this month, before the end of the year, whatever, like what's the one thing that an agent or an agency can do and implement and just kind of move things forward, dip a toe in the water?
Yeah. And I said this during my presentation. Technology has always disrupted and changed the insurance industry. From the 70s to the 80s, and I went through all of that. It always has. AI will do the same thing, and something next. I don't know even what it could be. And so that's the norm. And so sticking your heels in is probably not the way to go. I would say, if you don't have a paid account at one of the LLMs, again, probably ChatGPT, Claude, Anthropic's Claude, or Google's Gemini, get that first. And maybe if you don't want to do it, find somebody in your agency and give them some time or access to start, quote, playing around. See what you can do with this. And go back to your employees. Ask for their most time-consuming tasks that they do repeatedly, and start working on a workflow, a process to help streamline those tasks. That will do more to show the employee they still need to be there, and they do. I'm absolutely convinced of that. And they can save a tremendous amount of time with the busy work, the grunt work, the whatever you want to call the repetitive stuff. So that's an easy first step.
Steve, where can people find out more about you and your everything, your books and what you're doing?
My main social platform is LinkedIn. Search Steve Anderson Insurance or Steve Anderson Bezos. You will find me. Connect with me. Let me know you heard the podcast, and I'll be happy to connect with you. The book website is thebezosletters.com and steveanderson.com. I've had that domain since 1996.
Nice.
So it's been around a long time.
All right. Well, hey, Steve, thank you so much for the conversation. Really enjoyed it. And yeah, tune in next time for the next episode. Thanks so much.
All right. Take care.